Welcome to Murat Kalaman's page.
Mhm.
Today we're diving deep into AI explainability,
Oh, okay.
and we're using the Alan Turing Institute's workbook as our guide.
Sounds good.
So, to kick things off,
Yeah,
could you tell us a bit about the Alan Turing Institute and their focus on responsible AI?
sure. So the Alan Turing Institute is the UK's National Institute for Data Science and AI, and their work really centers on ensuring that these really powerful technologies, data science and AI, are used ethically and responsibly.
Yeah, and that's especially important now
Yeah.
because AI is being used in so many different areas, like in public services, which really impacts people's lives.
Right, and that's where AI explainability comes in.
Exactly. So can you break down what AI explainability actually means?
You can think of AI explainability as like making the black box of AI transparent.
Okay.
Like, let's imagine an AI system is deciding who gets a loan. Explainability would mean that you can understand why the system approved or denied your loan application.
Got it.
Like, what specific information did it look at?
Right? What logic did it use? It's about making the AI's reasoning clear to the people who are actually affected by its decisions.
So it's not just about knowing the outcome.
Right.
It's about understanding how the AI got to that outcome.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're not just seeing the magic trick, you're understanding how the magician did it.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So this sounds really important in theory,
Mm-hmm.
but why should we care about AI explainability in our own lives? Like,
Yeah.
how does it affect us directly?
So explainability, one thing is it helps build trust in AI.
Yeah.
If you understand how a system works, you're more likely to trust the decisions that it makes. And this is really important. When AI is being used in high-stakes situations like healthcare or finance, imagine being denied a loan and you have no idea why.
Right.
Explainability can help make sure that those AI systems are being fair and unbiased.
Mm.
If you understand how the system is making its decisions, you can check to make sure there are no hidden biases.
Yeah, that makes sense. So how do we actually make AI more explainable?
So the workbook lays out some great guidance, and it starts with what they call the 4 maxims of AI explainability.
Interesting. What are those?
They're like guiding principles.
Okay, let's hear them.
All right, so the first maxim is be transparent,
Okay.
and it means being upfront about how and why AI is being used. So no hiding behind those really complex algorithms or technical jargon. It's about explaining things in a way that anyone can understand.
I like that. What's the second one?
The second maxim is be accountable.
Okay.
And this one emphasizes the need for clear responsibility. So who built the AI, who's responsible for its decisions, and who can you contact if you have concerns? Accountability really ensures that there's always someone who can answer for the AI's actions.
Makes sense. What's the third maxim?
The third one is consider context.
Right.
And it reminds us that explanations should be tailored to the situation and the audience. So an explanation that works for a technical expert might not be suitable for someone who's not familiar with AI. It's about really taking the time to understand who you're explaining to.
Makes sense. And the final maxim.
The fourth one is reflect on impacts.
Okay.
And this is all about considering the broader consequences of using AI. So what are the potential benefits? What are the risks? How might this AI system affect individuals or society as a whole? It's about taking a step back and looking at the big picture.
I see. So these 4 maxims give us a really strong ethical framework for how we approach AI explainability.
Yeah.
But how do we actually put those principles into practice?
And that's where the 6 key types of explanations come in.
Okay.
They give you a practical framework for how to explain AI decisions.
Got it. So let's dive into these 6 types of explanations. What's the first one?
The first one is a rationale explanation.
Okay.
And it focuses on explaining the why behind an AI's decision. What factors did the AI look at? How did it weigh those factors? So let's say you're applying for that loan and you get rejected. A rationale explanation would tell you what aspects of your application, maybe like your credit score or your income, led to that decision.
That's helpful. And what's the next type of explanation?
The next one is a responsibility explanation.
Right.
And this is all about accountability.
Okay.
So who built the AI system? Who's responsible for maintaining it, making sure it's working properly? And who can you contact if you have questions or you want to challenge a decision that was made by the AI?
Makes sense. So we've got the rationale. We know who's responsible. What about the data that's actually feeding into the AI?
And that's where the data explanation comes in.
Okay.
This one focuses on explaining what data was used to train the AI system.
Mm-hmm.
Where did that data come
Right.
from? How was it collected and processed? And was it representative
Yeah.
and unbiased?
Yeah.
This explanation helps us understand how the AI system learned and whether the data itself might be influencing its decisions.
So if the data is biased, then the AI is probably going to be biased too.
Exactly. And that's why data explanations are so important.
Got it. What's the next type?
The next type is the fairness explanation.
Okay.
And this one addresses concerns about potential discrimination.
Hmm.
So were steps taken to ensure that the AI system is treating everyone fairly, regardless of their race,
Right.
their gender, or other protected characteristics. This explanation outlines the measures that are in place to prevent the AI from making unfair or discriminatory decisions.
And that's so important now with AI being used for things like hiring,
Absolutely.
loan applications, all that stuff.
Yep.
Fairness is key.
Yeah.
What about safety and reliability of the AI?
Right. And that's where the safety explanation comes in.
Okay.
This one focuses on how the AI system was built and tested to make sure that it's reliable and secure.
Got it.
So how was it tested to make sure it works properly? What safeguards are in place to prevent any errors or malicious attacks? The safety explanation helps us understand how that system was designed to be trustworthy.
That brings us to the final type of explanation.
Right, the impact explanation.
And what does that one cover?
That one takes a broader perspective and looks at the potential consequences of that AI system on individuals and society as a whole.
Okay.
So what are the intended and unintended effects of using this AI? How might it change the way things are done? This type of explanation encourages us to really think about the bigger picture.
Right, to consider the long-term implications of the AI.
Mm-hmm.
These 6 types of explanations give us a really comprehensive framework for making AI understandable and accountable.
Yeah,
So how do we actually apply these explanations in real-world situations?
that's a great question, and that's what we'll be looking at next.
Okay.
We're going to look at a case study from the workbook that explores AI in children's social care, and it will really bring these explanations to life.
That sounds fascinating.
Yeah.
Before we move on to that case study, though, I want to give you, the listener, a chance to think about everything we've talked about so far.
Mm-hmm.
What stood out to you? What questions do you have about AI explainability?
Right.
The 4 maxims, the 6 types of explanations. Hold on to those thoughts because we'll be exploring them further in the next part of our deep dive.
Looking forward to it. So let's jump into that case study now. It looks at how a local authority in the UK is thinking about using an AI system to help social workers figure out which children might be at risk.
Okay.
They're dealing with a really tough situation, with more and more demand for social care services.
Yeah.
But they just don't have the resources to meet all those needs.
So the AI could help them decide which cases need the most attention right away.
Exactly. The workbook looks at a system that uses a statistical model to try to predict how likely it is that a family will need help from social services within a certain time frame, like maybe 6 months.
That sounds really complicated.
It is, but imagine it. Like the AI is kind of like a doctor who's trying to assess a patient's risk of getting a certain disease.
Right.
So the doctor looks at all sorts of things like the patient's age, their family history, their lifestyle, and their medical test results.
Right.
And based on all that info, the doctor can kind of estimate how likely it is that the patient might get sick.
So the AI is looking at data about a family and using that to predict if they'll need help from social services. What kind of data is it looking at?
It can be pretty sensitive information.
Yeah.
Things like their income, their employment status, whether there's been any domestic abuse, and even their interactions with the police.
That does sound sensitive.
Yeah.
And that data could be affected by bias.
Yeah.
Right? Like societal inequalities and things like that.
Exactly. And that's why the workbook talks about how important those data explanations are.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just know that the AI predicted a certain level of risk.
Right.
You need to understand where the data came from, how it was collected, and if anyone tried to fix any potential bias in it.
So we have to be able to trace the AI's thinking all the way back to the data itself.
Right.
And what about those fairness explanations? How do they fit into this case study?
Oh, they're crucial here, especially because the stakes are so high.
Yeah.
We have to be able to show that the AI isn't discriminating against families just because of things like their race or ethnicity or how much money they make.
Right.
Did they take any steps to make sure the system doesn't unfairly punish families who are already struggling?
It sounds like explainability isn't just about the technology here. It's also about ethics.
Absolutely. The workbook actually uses a made-up family, the Smiths,
Okay.
to show how these different types of explanations would work in a real situation. Imagine a social worker going to meet with the Smiths to talk about what the AI predicted about their family.
Okay, let's walk through that.
Sure.
So what kind of explanation would that social worker need to give the Smiths?
Well, first they'd need to give them a rationale explanation.
All right.
They'd have to explain why the AI flagged their family as potentially needing support.
Okay.
What specific things made the AI think? Was it their finances? Or a previous report to social services? Or something else entirely?
Got it.
They have to take the AI's complex calculations and make them understandable for the family.
But the Smiths probably wouldn't be okay with just hearing that a computer made a prediction about them. They'd want to know who created this system and who they can talk to if they're worried about it.
You're absolutely right. And that's when the responsibility explanation comes in.
Yeah.
The social worker would have to make it super clear that the AI is just a tool to help them make better decisions. It's not the final word. And they'd need to give the family contact info for someone who can answer questions about the system.
What about the data explanation? What would the social worker tell the Smiths about the data?
They could tell them about the types of data the AI was trained on, like information about other families who needed help from social services,
Okay.
and how they checked the data to see if it was biased and how they fixed it.
I see.
Being transparent about that data can help the family trust the system more and see that it's being used fairly.
It sounds like a lot of information to process, though, especially for a family that's probably already feeling stressed.
That's true. It's a tough balance.
Yeah.
The social worker would have to be very sensitive to how the family is feeling and give them the information in a way that's clear and makes them feel reassured.
So what about the safety explanation?
Right. So with that one, the social worker would need to address any concerns the Smiths might have about whether the AI is reliable and if their information is safe.
Okay.
They could explain how they tested the system to make sure it's accurate and how they protect the family's data.
And finally, what about that impact explanation?
With that one, the social worker would talk about the bigger picture, the goals of using AI in social care, and how it could benefit families.
Okay.
They could also talk about some concerns people have, like about privacy or whether the system might unfairly target certain families.
This case study really shows just how challenging AI explainability can be
It does.
and how important it is to think carefully about how we use AI in sensitive areas like social care. It really highlights the ethical side of AI and using these technologies in a way that respects people's rights and makes things fairer. Before we go on, I want to pause for a second and ask you the listener a question.
Yeah.
Imagine you're in the Smith's shoes. How would you feel if someone told you an AI system predicted that your family might need social services?
Right.
What questions would you have? What would they have to explain to you to make you feel okay about it?
That's a really great question. It gets to the heart of why this is also important.
This whole idea of using AI in social care, it brings up so many ethical questions.
It really does.
We've been talking about how important it is to explain the AI's reasoning to families like those Smiths, but we can't forget that the AI, it's just one piece of the puzzle.
Absolutely.
For example?
It's not the whole story.
Yeah.
The AI might point out some risk factors or highlight families that need more attention, but ultimately it's the social worker who has to make decisions.
Right. Decisions based on each family's unique situation.
Exactly.
So human judgment is still essential.
The AI is more like a tool to help social workers, not replace them.
Okay, so it's not taking over their jobs.
No, not at all. It's more like, think about a doctor using an X-ray to see if a bone is broken.
Okay.
The X-ray gives them important information, but the doctor still has to use their expertise and knowledge of the patient to figure out the best treatment.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And it really emphasizes that AI should be used to help humans, not to replace them.
Right.
You know, this case study, it also makes us think about the bigger societal impacts of AI.
Definitely.
Like in that impact explanation. What are some unintended consequences of using AI in social care that we should be thinking about?
Well, one thing is that if we rely too much on AI predictions,
Yeah.
it could create a self-fulfilling prophecy.
How so?
Like if the AI keeps flagging families with certain characteristics as high risk,
Right.
social workers might start focusing more on those families,
Okay.
even if the AI is wrong.
Oh, I see.
And that could lead to certain families being unfairly targeted. And it could actually make existing biases in the system even worse.
So we need to be really careful that AI is being used to fix inequalities, not make them worse.
Absolutely.
Are there any other concerns?
Another worry is that using AI in social care could make people trust social services even less,
Okay.
especially in communities that have had negative experiences with these systems in the past.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If families feel like a computer is judging them and they don't understand how it works,
Right.
they might not ask for help even when they need it.
So being open and transparent and explaining how the AI works
Right.
is really important for building trust.
It's essential. We need to make sure that AI is being used ethically and responsibly.
Absolutely. It's not just about building a good AI system. It's about building a system that's fair,
Right.
equitable, and accountable.
Yeah, and that takes constant communication and collaboration between the people who create the technology, the social workers, the ethicists, and the communities who are being affected by it.
This whole deep dive into AI explainability has been so eye-opening. We've covered a lot, from those basic definitions and principles to those real-world challenges of using AI in such sensitive areas like social care.
It's been a great discussion.
It has. So as we wrap up, I want to leave you, the listener, with one final thought. We've talked a lot about understanding and explaining how AI makes decisions. But what happens as these AI systems become more advanced, more independent? What happens when they start making decisions that we as humans can't even understand?
Right.
How do we make sure those decisions match up with our values?
Yeah.
How do we make sure we stay in control?
Yeah.
These are questions we need to keep asking ourselves as AI keeps evolving. Thanks for joining us on this journey of exploring AI explainability.